right, so hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hit Point Paints. My name is Allie, and for the next 2 hours or so, I will be showing you guys how I paint miniatures for the tabletop, featuring some minis from Fool's Gold, which I'm very excited about. And this stream is featuring some music from the Humblewood soundtrack by Mint Potion. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as Allie Mackey. The tag should be on the overlay there. And before we get started, I have a couple of announcements from the team at Hit Point Press. All links can be found in the chat. So first of all, the Hecna Early Access PDF is available for pre-order, along with some other physical goodies from the Revelia. The Fool's Gold Into the Bellowing Wild Kickstarter campaign has launched. Do you have what it takes to survive in a jungle where everything is trying to kill you? You can get the minis I'll be showing off today by backing the campaign. The minis are available as STLs for 3D printing, as well for those of you looking to print the minis with your own 3D printers. You can also find the Big Bad broadcast on the last Tuesday of every month right here on the Hit Point Press channel. Every month in a 5e actual play stream, the party takes on a new baddie from our Big Bad booklet series, and we hope to see you there. You can also catch up on the last 2 episodes on our YouTube channel. Other upcoming streams include a very special Hit Point Paints episode on October 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where our channel will be taken over by Dingo of Dingo Doodles. So don't miss out on that, and don't miss out on another episode of Hit Point Paints on the 28th, the very next day, with another in-house artist who will be showing off the process of sculpting minis, like the ones you'll be seeing today, as well as a Halloween one-shot of Are We the Baddies from Hecna, coming up very soon. So check out our full schedule in the panels below, and we hope to see you there. More information and all links can be found in the chat. So yeah, let's get started. Once again, thanks for joining me today. So I have a couple of minis on hand here that I'm going to be working on. Mostly I'm going to be working on our friend here, Sips. So Sips is arguably the main character in the Fool's Gold series on YouTube. I've got him started just a little bit here just because yellow is notoriously horrible to paint. It takes a bunch of coats, so I just got him started since his main coat color is yellow. And yeah, so it just started off a little bit, but I wanted to talk about kind of my process and my setup real quick. If you guys have any questions, feel free to just ask in the chat. I'm going to be looking over every once in a while, and I can answer your questions. So first of all, my setup here is pretty straightforward. I have my minis, which I actually just showed you Sips here, and I put all of my minis onto a handle, just with a little bit of blue sticky tack. This handle is actually an empty vial of beer yeast. One of my partner and I's hobbies is brewing beer, and I hold on to the yeast vials because they make excellent handles for holding minis. There's a few reasons for this. It helps keep your hand from cramping up because you're not holding this little base all the time. And it also just helps you get the mini from all different angles. You know, I can hold it upside down easily, and everything else without actually touching the mini and getting my fingerprints all over it. So yeah, that's a really good thing to use. And obviously you can use anything you have on hand that suits the purpose. Yeah, so I use those. So I always have my mini on hand with a handle stuck to it. And of course I have paintbrushes, a whole mason jar full of them. I took out some of the ones I plan to use today, but I always have a whole bunch on hand of all different sizes and quality. There's some of them in here that are in really bad shape, but I hold on to them anyway. And of course I have my paints. You can kind of see some off to the side here that I put aside ready to go. I keep all my extra ones in this little berry picking jar that I have on the side there. And of course, jar of paint water. I promise I won't drink from it. And the last thing is a paper towel here. Always have a paper towel in case I need to dry off paints or just wipe off excess paint. You'll see me filling this up with paint as I go. And this guy here, which is a wet palette. So sorry, it's a little out of focus there, but the yellow thing you're seeing is a sponge that's moistened with water. On top of it, some parchment paper, and this is what I put my paints onto. The benefit of this is that you can put acrylic paints on the palette and they won't dry out fast. So they'll stay wet for a much longer time than they would if you're just sticking them on like a plastic paint palette or something. So it's really great for mini painting because usually I paint minis in a couple of sessions over the course of, a week or two. So I can just, set this guy down, stick a lid on top, and it's way to go. It was like $20 at Michael's, so it was a really good investment. If you have any hobby that involves painting with acrylic paints, highly recommend picking up one of these guys. It's really useful. So yeah, that's my setup in a nutshell. It's very, very simple. Some people have more complex setups than me, but that's it. So with that, I'm gonna pull out some paintbrush here and start working on sips. Actually, before we work on sips, I guess I'll talk a little bit about how we got to this point, because obviously he has some work done on him already. So when we receive minis from wherever we receive them, they look more like this. This is Gothy from Fool's Gold. Gothy was 3D printed in our office. So she's made of resin material and they come out looking like this. So as you can see, you can't really see a lot of detail just yet. It is there, but it's hard to see. So typically I like to start my minis by underpainting, which is just a technique that puts down some simple detail so you can see more detail as you paint. And I actually have an underpainted Gothy here for comparison. So as you can see here, just try to hold her up there, much more detail can be seen when you start underpainting. And all I did to achieve this look is I painted her all over with this flat brown that you see on the base, just the flat brown everywhere. And then I took a flat brush, kind of like this, and I took a lighter kind of sand color and just put the slightest amount of paint on the brush, like just a tiny bit of paint on the brush, and just started like very lightly going over all the edges, very, very lightly. And what that does is it picks up all the fine detail in the mini. It's called dry brushing, the technique. It's called dry brushing. It picks up all the little details on the mini so that, you know, you can see the detail on her wooden mask. You can see the detail on the parts on her arm there that are typically glowing. You can see the detail of the dreadlocks in her hair. And honestly, like, if you're not really big into painting minis, this is a great way to get a mini ready for tabletop. You could just leave it like this and start using it, because then you see all the awesome detail on it. You can clearly see it's Gothy and she looks like she's ready for a fight. You know, and just pick your favorite colors. You could do dark purple and light blue or something like that and have a really cool looking Gothy. You know, any colors you want, and just leave it like this, you're good to go. If you really aren't into the more detailed painting, pretty much anyone can do this with just, like I said, a flat coat of paint, a darker paint, and a very light little dry brush of a lighter paint. You're good to go. So that's one way you can prepare minis for tabletop if you're either pressed for time or just don't want to commit a lot of work or effort into it. And as you can see, it produces a really fun result. So, but for me, I like to paint my minis with more detail. So this is my starting point. So this is how Sips started out, was looking just like this, with the dark brown with the light brown details in it. And you can kind of see, kind of on his pants and stuff, the leftovers of that. Because that's where the dark brown and the light brown would have been. So that's where we're at. Now let's start painting. And I haven't looked over at the questions just yet, so I'm gonna peek over here real quick. How would we be able to do, okay, so Karen Knight asks, how would we be able to do a mini of Sips that has other levels of curse corruption? Will we have to use a custom model? No. So this sculpt of Sips is designed as kind of the one we meet in the first place, that has kind of the half arm, the half crocodile arm on this side. You guys might be seeing that reversed, but oh no, it's correct. Never mind. So yeah, but you could easily, you could easily make it work so that you're kind of painting the head half green with like a black eye, that kind of thing. Because the only big difference, I think, sculpt-wise, is that the cursed arm does have a few little spiky bits on it, for the little white spiky bits on the crocodile arm. You could make that work with just putting some little white dots up the arm, though. Honestly, like, you can see the size of this mini, like, it's so small that if it's on the tabletop and you just kind of put little white dots to signify the little spikes, it would still look really, really cool. So you could definitely modify this Sips mini to be at 50%, just kind of, putting the green halfway through all the way down. Yeah. And I mean, some people definitely will add things to minis, even just little bits of putty or something. It might be a little difficult at this scale, but it is possible to add all sorts of things, like whatever you want to a mini to make it look like you want. So that would be a way you could do it. But I think at this scale, you could really just paint the appropriate areas green and give him the one black eye, and he would look really cool. So that's my thought. And another question, what kind of paints do I use? So yeah, I can go through that real quick. I promise we will paint on this stream. So the main one I use is Vallejo Model Color. There's a few reasons I really like this brand. One, it's in a dropper bottle, so it's really easy for me to just squirt a tiny bit onto my palette whenever I need it and save paint. I also just really like the flow of it. It's not super thick. I find some other paints I've used have been very thick, and I prefer a slightly more watered down paint just because it lays out on the mini easier. So I find with the Vallejo, I don't typically have to water down my paint before I apply it to the model, which I really appreciate. Another one I use is Citadel, which, this is the Games Workshop Warhammer official paint, so a lot of people have heard of this one. Not a huge fan of their paints. They're a little too thick, and I don't like the pot. The pot's really annoying to open and close, and the lid often breaks, and it's got this neat little reservoir that you can kind of take paint out of, but otherwise I'm not a huge fan of the pots, and I'm not a huge fan of the texture, but they can be really useful. I do love their washes, and I will talk about washes a little later in the stream. I use their washes exclusively because they have better washes than anybody else. So, and the last one I have is P3, which is just, I have a couple of this brand just because I couldn't find the color in Vallejo at the hobby store. But I do like them better than Citadel as well. So they're kind of my fallback. I also don't really like their pots either. They're the same reasons as a Citadel. You have to pop them open. You can't squirt them onto the palette, but they're good. They have a similar flow to Vallejo, which I really like. So that's my three brands, mostly Vallejo with a smattering of P3 and Citadel in there. Yeah. And actually, mods, if you can just push me questions as you get them, I think that's going to be a little bit easier because then I can start painting and kind of paint as I talk where I can. I see, do you use Reaper paints at all? I don't, not for any particular reason. I'm not against Reaper paints. I just kind of started using Vallejo and I fell in love with them, and I have been using them ever since. So I'm actually going to start by using the P3 paint that I just showed you. It's a dark purple for Sips's pants. Whoops, knocked my table there. And I have a reference of Sips open on my screen, and he has dark purple harem pants. So we're going to start with that. So for this one, I don't put it on the palette. I just kind of set up the pot because it is quite a watered down paint already. And to drip some onto the palette would just be a big mess. So I just take a little bit out of the reservoir and I start applying paint. Now I have a very thin brush here. This is a size, I believe, 0 brush. And I'll usually dump just a little bit of paint onto there so that I don't accidentally pour some where I don't want it. And then I just start applying paint. And typically when I'm applying a base layer like this, and especially a dark color like this, I try to be very careful not to get any on the yellow bits because, as I mentioned previously, like painting yellow, is very challenging. Yellow doesn't have a lot of pigment to it, and actually neither does violet. You can see that you can still see the underpaint really clearly as I'm applying this coat. There's a few colors of paint that don't have as much pigment in them and usually require a couple of coats to get a good coverage. Yellow is probably the worst culprit for it. Anytime I need to use yellow, I mean, I really enjoy using yellow when I paint, but it takes a lot more time because you have to put quite a few coats. I think for Sips here, getting a nice even coat of yellow took about 4 coats, and that's because there's a little bit of white mixed into it. White has very strong pigment, so it doesn't take as many coats to apply white. I see a question coming through. Do you find having a reference for what you're working on helps? I hear people say that a bunch. Yes. And actually, when I'm painting my own personal minis and just want to come up with some, there isn't an existing color scheme, I will usually make my own. I'm a digital artist in my spare time, and so I'll usually pull up like a picture of the gray model or whatever, and I'll color over it in Photoshop or something and come up with a color scheme before I paint. I don't always adhere to it, but it's really nice to have just something in mind so I can start planning my painting. I usually mix a lot of my paints. I don't have a big variety of paints on hand, so it's really good to have all that on hand and know what colors I'm going to be planning for. So yes, I almost always have references on hand, and like I said, for Sips here, there is existing reference. I have a drawing up here. I think this one's by Dingo, but yeah, just a concept picture of sips so that I get his colors pretty close. And they might be a little different, and that's okay. It's for fun, and it's for your tabletop. If you want a purple sips, purple like furred sips, go for it. I don't think anybody's gonna mind. But yeah, I see another question here. How much of Sip's body is going to be cursed? So in this case, just his arm, just kind of the half arm situation. That's how this sculpt was designed. But as I mentioned earlier, you can of course modify that. You could just stick, the green crocodile curse all over half of them if you want to, or even do 100% cursed Sips. That might be that might require a little bit of sculpting or some unique paint, but you could definitely do it. But this sculpt specifically, is designed to be just the one half arm that I think everybody's most familiar with Sips, because I believe that's what his situation was in the first episode. So, yeah. Question from Brood Rooster: does it improve your mood as well when painting happy, cute minis? Absolutely. Well, though I'll be real with you guys. So I've been painting minis now for quite some time, and I think my favorite types of minis to paint are like the really gross ones. So I've painted a bunch of minis for board games, and I remember having to paint one. His name's Grimgut for a game called God Tier by Steamforged Games, and he's this huge like flesh golem type of thing with like just hanging sacks of flesh everywhere, like the most disgusting thing you've ever seen. And he has these little minions that are basically reanimated vomit. Like, it is just the grossest entire situation ever, but like it was so much fun to paint something like that. And I've learned, which is really weird, like I typically like cute things, but I really like painting gross things. It's really satisfying to paint really gross things. A question from Shadow Reaper: what color did you use for a primer? I know that the primer underneath shades the base coat. Yes, it does. And thanks for bringing that up. I actually forgot to mention that. It's another benefit of underpainting and just priming in general is that the shadows that you kind of set up underneath will often show through your paint, even just a little bit, which is another reason it's really good to underpaint, to show like the highlights and the shadows. And so specifically what I used is actually just the Vallejo flat earth paint for the dark brown, and for the light brown, where is it? Oh, it's right in front of my face. I used the Vallejo dark sand. So pretty straightforward. I just wanted kind of earthy tones for both Sips and Gothy. I do plan to paint the Gothy that I showed on screen at some point. Not today, unfortunately. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The base underpaint will usually show a bit underneath your stuff, and that's another really good reason to use it. So just give me a sec here. When I work on little edges like this, I have to hyper focus just a little bit and make sure I don't make a mess, and I didn't, so hooray for me. And just this little spot up here, I don't know if I'm trying to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. Whoa, there we go. Yeah, amazing. So that's the first coat of paint of the pants done. I might fill it in just a little bit after it dries. It's a little bit, might need a little bit of a second coat there, but that's the purple. Whoop. Question from Fiverr: Allie, you gonna paint some scary clowns for Heckna? Maybe, actually. If people like this stream, I'm more than happy to do more in the future. And there are, in our Heckna pre-orders, some really cool minis coming in. I've seen some previews of them, and they are terrifying and awesome. So, I mean, yeah, I'd love to. So we'll see what happens. All right, a sec here. Question from GeoNerd: as a homebrewer, I appreciate the White Labs yeast vial and now have a great use for those. Thanks for you. Yeah, you're welcome. We held on to these just because they are really nice quality. Like, they're these super hard plastic vials, and we just, in our household, we keep things like this, because we have, between my partner and I, we have a million hobbies, and it's just something that we thought would be useful one day. And then I took up painting minis again after a long hiatus, and I needed handles and found these in a bin. And yeah, like I have a whole jar of them now that I use just for painting minis. It's fantastic. I really enjoy just having so many hobbies. I really enjoy when they intersperse in ways I don't expect, and this is definitely one of those situations. So yeah, I'm glad I gave you the idea. So while the purple finishes drying, I'm going to move on to Sips's little belt and vest, which are the same color. So 1 second here. And we're going to use the Citadel that I showed earlier, Mephiston Red, just because it's the only kind of dark red color I have. I keep meaning to pick up a dark red Vallejo, but I haven't yet. So we're using Mephiston Red from Citadel. I am going to drip a little bit of this one onto the palette because, like I said before, the P3s are pretty watered down as they are, but the Citadel, you can even kind of see it there, like it's quite thick compared to the Vallejo. So I like to just stick it on my wet palette, and I find even just putting it on the wet palette, like I don't really need to add more water to it. The wet palette kind of helps thin it out just a smidge, which really helps me out. So doesn't go too crazy. Just checking the questions before I start on this. So, question, what's your opinion of the Sundrop style? So for those of you who don't know what that is, Sundrop style is kind of another like simple way of painting minis. We were actually offering, for our big mini in the Kickstarter, we're offering a Sundrop style as an additional add-on for free. What it is it's kind of similar to what I did there, to be honest. So I love it. I think it's great. Both styles are what's called like a zenithal highlight. I forget the source of that term. Maybe someone in the chat might know. But zenithal highlight is essentially whenever you do, I'll just show Gothy again for a sec. Whenever you take like, you know, a dark prime like this and then highlight the parts where the light will hit more. That's a zenithal highlight. So that's another name for this. I'm calling it underpainting because that's also what it is. So Sundrop's basically this, but it's using more of a tan color scheme. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's great. Another great way to make a mini look great for the tabletop without too much effort. And a lot of miniature manufacturers do offer like a Sundrop style just out of the box, and that's great too. I think whatever makes your minis look good for you for the table is fantastic. And I do really like the Sundrop look as well. Okay, GM Workshop asks, what's worse, stepping into a puddle with clean socks on or putting a darker shade of paint on a lighter coat? Oh, putting a darker shade of paint on a lighter coat. Real quick, I worked on this guy last week, and that yellow, all that yellow, like just, oh my God, I got wash on it so many times and I had to repaint it so many times. So yeah, I'm going with putting a darker shade of paint on a lighter coat. Yeah, it makes me cry a little bit every time. Yeah. Wet socks really aren't fun either though. So, you know, sorry, I just have a little hair sticking out of my paintbrush there. And that is, when you're working this small, having a tiny hair sticking out of your paintbrush is not a good time. So just laying down. So Sips's belt and vest are actually a little more orange than red, but I'm being strategic here. We're going to start with a base coat of red, and we're going to kind of lay some orange on top of it later. Just because red and orange play a little funny sometimes. That's another trick to mini painting and just painting in general, is learning how different colors work with each other. And in general, like red is another very heavy pigment paint, so it goes on, you know, you usually only need one coat of red. But orange is a very low pigment paint typically. So if I try to put orange down and instead of red, it's going to take me like 3 coats. So if I put red down and then kind of highlight it in orange after, we'll get a really cool dark orange effect, but with less effort, like less coats having to be applied to the mini. So, and you always want to kind of aim, if you can, to do less coats on a mini because, oh, I got a little bit of red on there. Preserving the detail of minis, especially ones that are small like Sips here, is really important. I'm just brushing off that little bit of red that I accidentally smeared onto the purple. And it's only kind of working, but that's okay. I'm going to be doing another coat of purple anyway, so that'll get covered up. I see a message from Kieran Knight. Have you ever played D&D before, or have you just painted the minis? I have absolutely played D&D many, many times. I played mostly like 2nd and 3rd edition when I was in high school and college, and have played quite a lot of 5e. Embarrassingly enough, I haven't played much recently, just pandemic and everything else. But now that I am working for a company that produces 5e products, I suspect that will change pretty quickly. I do love playing D&D. I love, you know, I love everything about it. Just the stories you wind up telling and the fun you have with friends. Yeah, I play a lot of different tabletop and board games. I'm often drawn to ones that have miniatures involved with them for obvious reasons. But yeah, I do love playing D&D and want to get back into it soon. It's very fun. Okay, super focused for a second here. Whoa. The nerve-wracking bits. And I will inevitably, guys, I will inevitably put a little bit of paint on the yellow that I don't want to. It's just gonna happen. And honestly, like, it's better for my mental health to just accept that it's gonna happen. And, you know, do my best to not do it. But if it does happen, I try not to get upset with myself, because there's no reason to get too upset with yourself. It's just a mini. It's just a piece of plastic that you're painting for fun, and you can repaint, and you can, you know, if it looks horrible, you can strip the entire thing in alcohol and redo the whole thing over again. No matter what, like, you know, it's okay to make mistakes. You should make mistakes because that's how you learn. And it's cool. And like, I'm on a stream, you know, to be honest, I'm a little nervous. It's kind of funny, like, having so many people watch me paint. I'm so glad you're all here watching me paint. But yeah, like, my hands are just a little shakier than usual. So, you know, might make a couple of mistakes, and that's okay. Oh, I see a place, Firefox 1498. What are good places to get custom minis? Depends on what you mean by custom. Like, there's so many places you can get minis, and just depends on what you want, you know, like, for people, if you want like a certain monster from D&D, like, there's tons of places selling stuff like that. There's like 3D printing is so big now. You know, resin printing, there's whole Patreons dedicated to selling STL files for 3D printers. That's a really loaded question. Like, I don't think I'd be able to send you just to one place. It depends on what you want to do with them. It depends on what game you want to play. It depends on, like, yeah, so many different things. I mean, I hate to just tell people Google is your friend, because that seems dismissive, but like, honestly, if you just plug in what you want and minis, like, you're probably going to find. In terms of like custom sculpts, typically you'll have to hire somebody for that if you want something really specific. You know, there's people that sculpt, but it's like any art commission, you're going to want to pay them what they're worth, so it's not going to be cheap. But yeah, there's tons of people manufacturing minis out there. Like, the list is endless. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Okay, hyper focus again for a sec here, guys. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. A little bit messy, but that's okay. He's looking good. He's looking good. Question: how would you feel about painting the giant dire Tarrasque mini? I mean, first of all, I don't own an airbrush, and I feel like you need an airbrush to get rolling with that lad. But I mean, absolutely. I think, you know, I have a shelf where I display all of my, like, just minis that I don't actively use for gaming, and like, imagine having a Tarrasque quote unquote mini right slam in the middle of all that. Absolutely. I do actually hope to paint one of the Tarrasque minis. I've seen like so much good art of Tarrasques, and it just gets me so excited about the model. And yeah, I would definitely want to paint one. Because yeah, that would be just the coolest thing. Definitely the largest mini I would ever paint. I like the biggest ones I've painted up until now are like, oh, I'm gonna get this wrong and someone's gonna slap me for it, but it's like 32 millimeter. The larger base than this yeah, that would be the largest I've painted so far. So that would be a treat and a challenge. Definitely. Just gonna get some water here, guys. One sec. All right. GM Workshop asks, how excited are you for CR season premiere tonight? Should we expect an HPP plug at the top? I don't know about the latter part of that question, but the former, yes. I am actually not caught up with CR, but I still kind of want to check out tonight just because I know that this campaign setting and everything else surrounding it has been a huge like shift for them, and I think it's a really cool shift that they're taking some risks with this, and I really admire that. I've been excited to see kind of what direction they're going, and like just in general, they have a lot of really cool projects going on. Like we're huge CR fans over at Hit Point Press, so I suspect a lot of us are going to be tuning in tonight. Ooh, another little tricky bit here, bear with me. Ooh. And yes, I do always make that funny little noise, even when I'm on my own, when I'm painting a little nerve-wracking area of the mini. Okay, that's not too bad, actually. I thought that was going to go worse. So there's like a little bit of right around his chest there. I kind of put a little bit of red, but it's barely noticeable. And honestly, as I keep moving through this, it becomes even less noticeable. So hopefully I'll be able to show all of that to you on the stream today. We're doing good for time, so hopefully I'll be able to. So that's the dark colors kind of laid in, and that's really the most nerve-wracking part. I'm going to lay a little more purple down real quick now that the first layer has dried, just so that we don't have that streakiness going on. So I'll pull out my purple again. I always give it a little shaky shake when I open it again to make sure it's well mixed. There we go. And I never leave paint pots open if I'm not using them. I know there's some mini painters in the chat right now, and they can commiserate with me, especially when it comes to these washes that are like pure liquid. You leave a paint pot open when you're not supposed to, it's gonna spill. That's just the rule. Like, just don't set yourself up for disaster. So I try to only keep one or two open at a time, depending on what I'm working on, and just open them as I need them. Loving the chat, by the way, guys. I'm glancing over every once in a while, and I'm trying not to just laugh randomly at a lot of the stuff being talked about. You guys are having a good time. I love it. Really glad you're here. It's a lot of fun to hang out with everybody while I paint. Hopefully I'm being at least mildly entertaining and helpful to you guys today. There we go. This is already looking better. I was worried it might take 3 coats to get the purple looking good, but actually I think we're going to be okay with 2 because we'll also have a few more steps. This is just the base coat, so I think this will be fine. With the base coat, when you're base coating a mini, and by base coating I just mean laying down like the flat colors, so it's very simple looking. You're just laying down very basic color. When you're base coating, the main goal should be to get nice clear lines between, all the different parts. As you can see, like the vest and the pants and the tail and the arms are all very clearly defined. And yeah, just try to get that as clean as possible in these first steps, because that's the part that kind of will show later, no matter what you do. Like this kind of defines, this sets up a nice baseline for the rest of your paint job, basically. So I always take my time with the base coating. I'll be honest, it's my least favorite part of the process, just because it's just a little dull. You're kind of laying down, just flat colors, but it's also super important. So I take my time with it and just try to make our little pal Sips look as good as he possibly can. And I think he's looking pretty good. He looks like he's choosing violence today, which is pretty accurate for Sips, I'd say. I think Sips is my favorite character from the Fool's Gold series. I know nobody asked that, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Second to Old Gothy, specifically Old Gothy. Old Gothy is life goals to me. But Sips, I can identify with Sips. got a lot of emotion. He's got a lot going on, and life's a little too much for him sometimes, and I think we can all kind of get behind that. All right. 2 seconds for a quick hand stretch. This is something that I find is super, Sips is rolling away on me there. Stretching is super important. I try to stretch pretty often, especially with something like minis, because like, you know, you're holding your hands in these weird little positions for long periods of time. Just little quick knuckle cracks. Sorry if you guys can hear that. And just kind of stretching my wrists. It's like I'm dancing for you guys using only my hands. Yeah, and I'll do a bigger stretch at maybe about 20 minutes at the hour mark, but that's like just little in between stretches. Always stretch. Like, I feel like hopefully you guys all know that if you have a desk job or you do hobbies where you're just kind of in the same position for long periods of time, do stretch a lot, because we were just talking about this earlier, myself and a few of my coworkers, about how, you know, you start hitting the age of 30 or so and you really start to regret that you didn't stretch when you were younger. So just stretching is really good for you, and you should do it often no matter what you're doing. No matter what you're doing in your life, stretch. Okay. That's my public service announcement of the day. So now I got a little, this is like a flesh tone. It's called Rin Flesh. I don't know. A lot of these paints are named after like models that the company sells as well. Like Citadel will have paint colors named after like models in their paint line. P3, I think it's the same thing. So our Rin is a thing they sell, I guess. I don't really know. But it's just kind of a generic kind of Caucasian skin tone, which I'll be using for the skin parts of Sips, because his skin parts are kind of a Caucasian skin tone. So this part might be a little tricky to see on stream. I know the color is just a little washed out. So bear with me if you can't see it too well. This is kind of a small part. The room I'm in for painting right now is actually not the room I usually... I film mini painting for YouTube as well, and I usually do that in another room. This room is a little bit darker, and the black desk is probably doing some stuff with the light as well. So it's just a little bit wonkier light than I usually have, but hopefully you guys can see him okay. I'm just laying down skin tone. I'm also putting the skin tone on his teeth just to lighten them a bit in preparation for putting some white on the teeth later. And every once in a while I re-wet my brush. This is a really fine brush, so I like to make sure that the tip is really pointy, and every once in a while I run it through water again for that. All right, a couple more questions coming in too. Question, what's your opinion on painting the entire mini and then progressively narrowing down how much gets painted with each additional new color? That's a really good question. So like, I'm assuming you mean like, for example, what if I painted Sips all in yellow and then just kind of work down with more specific colors? It can work well. It can work fine. Personally, I'm not going to do it just because, as I mentioned earlier, it's really easy to put too many layers of paint on a mini. And it can start looking a little chunky, I guess, for lack of a better word, on some of the areas of the mini. So personally, I try not to do that. As most of you saw at the beginning of the stream, I tried to keep the yellow just to the areas of Sips where it was going to be, with just a little bit of overlap into the vest and stuff like that. And again, that's because I had to lay down so many layers of yellow. Like there's 4 layers of yellow on Sips right now, and I just would rather not lay more paint on top of that if I can help it. Obviously, if I make a mistake, I'll fix it. But yeah, so just personally, I usually don't. It's not a wrong way of doing it. Sometimes it's easier visually for people to do it that way. I know some people who paint using that process, and it's fine. It works just fine. So whatever, at the end of the day, like whatever works for you, right? You're painting these for fun. Learn what works for you and just kind of go from there and improve at your own pace. And, you know, it should be fun. It shouldn't be... I tell so many people when they see the minis I do as a hobby, and they're like, wow, like that would stress me out so much if I did that hobby. And I think about that a lot, you know, and yeah, you're painting this tiny thing and it's a little bit nerve-wracking for sure. But like, really, it's just a little toy at the end of the day. You're painting a little thing for the tabletop. Have fun. Have fun. Make mistakes. Take chances. Get messy. My brush is being a little fussy with holding its tip. It happens sometimes, which is why I keep pausing to make the point again. But we're getting there, so a little bit here. Question: what's your favorite monster? I was gonna say, do you mean in Fool's Gold or do you mean in D&D? I'm gonna assume you might mean Fool's Gold, but I'll address that first. So Fool's Gold, I mean, I hate to be basic, but it's the Tarrasque. I mean, in the specific context of Fool's Gold, it has to be the Tarrasque, because I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to watch Fool's Gold until I got this job at Hit Point Press. And as the marketing person at Hit Point Press, when I was told we were doing a Kickstarter based on this YouTube series, I'm like, oh cool, I should probably watch it so I know what I'm marketing. And I watched that first episode and like cried laughing at the whole situation with, and if you haven't watched it, please do. Like, just, yeah, and everything else in Fool's Gold is fantastic. I've been loving every episode I've watched, but like, I don't know, there's something special about that first episode. So, and you know, I've never actually encountered a Tarrasque in any of my D&D games over the years, believe it or not. So like, I was familiar with the Tarrasque, but like to see it in that context was just the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. So like, generic answer, I guess, but like, it's got to be the Tarrasque that was so rudely interrupted while karaoke was being sung. Question: if you had a chance to paint the characters' alternate forms like Old Gothy and Magical Girl Arena, would you take that chance? Yeah, I would paint Old Gothy like right now if I got the chance. And Magical Girl Arena, I think, would just be like really fun to play with the colors. And like, I'm not very good at painting like glowy, sparkly things. So I feel like that would be like the perfect opportunity to practice like really fun, loud colors. So yeah, I mean, that would be a treat. And like Old Gothy, I guess, would be kind of a simple color scheme, but I mean, it's Old Gothy. I would love to have Old Gothy. Picture her on my shelf shouting at me to get her more potatoes or more ducks or something. I love Old Gothy. We need to protect Old Gothy with our lives. So I'm just painting Sips's fingies and toes. This is a little messy, and that's okay. The color of the yellow and the flesh, I know, again, it's really hard to see, guys. Sorry about that. The yellow and the flesh, though, are really similar in color. So if I overdo it just a little bit, it actually probably isn't going to be that bad. And that's another thing with mini painting. Like sometimes you know, with for example, like the red on the yellow, you have to be really precise. But with like the flesh and the yellow, there's a little bit of wiggle room there, just because of the similarity in color to them. And again, that's just something you learn as you go, kind of what'll work and what doesn't. I find it hard to give advice on that kind of stuff, but. Question: brush licking, yeah or nah? I've done it. I'm not gonna lie. Not recently. I read a book called Radium Girls recently. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's the true story of women who worked when radium was like the new big thing, and everybody was putting radium on everything because it glowed at night and it was cool. And they worked in a warehouse where they painted like clock faces with radium, and they would always lick their brushes, and you can imagine how that ended for them. So ever since reading that book, I know it's just acrylic paint and it's non-toxic, but like it completely scared me from ever like licking my brush again. So I haven't done it since reading that book. But I mean, you know, it's not going to hurt you. It's especially, well, depending on the paint. Let's be clear about that. This is all acrylic paint, so if I lick a brush every once in a while, it's not going to hurt me, but I mean, it's generally probably not a good habit to get into. So I'm just checking my flesh color here, and I think we're good on that for now. I might revisit it, but for now, I'm going to start working on Sips's Crocodile Curse arm, which is this little arm here. So give me a sec here. Prep the green. Couple questions here. Kenny Holtz asked, what's your preferred brush set to use? This is embarrassing. Okay, so if you see me use ones with the pink handle, they are Mod Podge brand brushes from Michaels, which I have a whole set of. And these little teeny guys I've been using are One Happy Choice from China. So yeah. I'm hard on my brushes, so there's a lot of mini painters out there that use really high quality, like Kolinsky Sable brushes and stuff like that. I tried a few of those and I wrecked them so fast that I just stick with synthetic brushes, and as they fade away, I just either toss them or repurpose them. So remember I was talking about dry brushing earlier with Gothy here, how I take like a flat brush and I apply broad, very light strokes of paint. When I need to do that on a finer area, I actually take one of these fine point brushes that's old and I cut it. So it gets a second chance at life. I hope you can see that there. And it becomes a dry brush because it's shorter and it just kind of flicks the paint. So I do try to make them last as long as I possibly can. It's not like I'm throwing away brushes every day or anything like that, but I definitely am a little harder and crueler on my brushes than some mini painters are. So I don't have a specific brush set, unfortunately. If you want good size 0 synthetic brushes, I mean, this comes in a set of 50 from Amazon. I feel really gross promoting Amazon and China, but I do like these brushes, so it is what it is. Yeah, so this size 0 brush is what I use for like most of the painting, especially on really small minis like this. If I'm working on like a larger mini, I'll use some slightly larger brushes, again, that are just from Michaels. So, but the reusing thing is really like reusing them as a dry brush actually came from a YouTube channel I watch called Midwinter Minis. Guy, the host of that channel, said that in one of his videos, and that was just like one of the most brilliant little pieces of mini painting advice I've ever received. So if you have old brushes that are just, the point is all gross, just snip it and reuse it as a dry brush. It's great. So, right, the green. I picked them up to paint again and I haven't even put the green on the palette yet. Question, what would a mini of Allie look like and how would you paint her? Oh, goodness gracious. So this is funny, actually, and this comes back to the custom minis question earlier. There's a company called Hero Forge Minis that makes like, you can actually go to their website and they have like a software where you can make your own like mini. So that is actually probably the answer to the previous question. I wasn't thinking of them earlier. I made an Allie mini in there once, but I never actually ordered it. But she had like a hoodie, an old zip-up hoodie on. She had like denim jeans, like Converse high-top sneakers, and messy ponytail and glasses, because that is basically me every single day of my life. So it was like the most boring miniature in the world, and I think that might have been why I didn't order it in the end. But it was fun to make myself as a miniature and to see it on the screen. That was pretty cool. It would be probably fun to like, yeah, make myself as a mini and paint it. But I'd want to make it a bit more exciting. Maybe like make one with like my cat as my like sidekick or something. I don't know. It's a good question. I should revisit that again. Yeah, just focusing for a sec here, because again, I'm working close to the yellow, and it's like, it gives me a bit of anxiety every time I work close to the yellow. But bear with me a second here. Hopefully you guys can see okay. Painting minis under a camera is very weird. Like I said before, I do some mini painting videos on YouTube as well, and like I'll often just like pull the mini off the camera without realizing it. So I'm trying not to do that today because we're live and I can't edit it later like I can with YouTube. So we're getting some green on the crocodile arm, just some light green, because again, this is just the base coat, and green is another paint that goes on pretty thick. It's got nice pigment to it, so I'm just using, this is just a little lighter. I know again it shows really light on the stream, but this is just a little lighter than the green that I see in the concept art in front of me, so and we'll be able to darken it up just a little bit afterwards. Once I'm done the arm here, I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to stay on screen for the break, but I'm just going to take a proper little posture break, because to paint on a stream like this, I'm actually pretty hunched over on my desk. So when I'm painting, like usually when I'm painting, I have a chair with armrests, and I lean back and I rest my elbows. You can kind of see my elbows on the stream. I always rest my elbows on a surface when I paint. And I usually lean back and do that, but for a stream, I kind of have to lean forward. So I'm making it a point just to take a few little breaks as to keep my poor old lady back happy. Yeah, that's looking good. Making sure I don't miss any areas here, especially inside in these little inner areas here, like the bent arm can sometimes be an easy spot to miss. So it's always good to stop and kind of turn the mini around and make sure that you're not missing any bits. Our mods just reminded me I'm nearing the 1 hour mark. Thank you. It's really nice to have reminders to take a break, because sometimes it's hard to, you're getting in the zone, especially with like a hobby. And like, I definitely sometimes paint and suddenly 3 hours have passed and my back is screaming at me. So it's really important to try to remember to take breaks whenever you can. Oh, there's a little spot I missed here. Sometimes it's tricky because you really got to tuck in there, but yeah, there we go. So his croc arm has a base coat of green on it now. And yeah, we're looking good. Like there's a bit more to do here before we move on to the next steps. But yeah, we're looking really, really good here. The next step is going to be filling in his face and doing some little effects on the spells here. But for a moment, I'm going to put him away. Do another little hand stretch. Don't go anywhere. We're not taking like a proper break. I'm just kind of, doing my little handy dance for you again while I do a little bit of stretching. I see 2 more questions here, I think. If you could meet old Gothy, what would you do or say? I don't know, because she probably wouldn't even remember the conversation or like where we are. So really anything that Gothy would want to talk about. I might offer her a potato or ask her how many ducks she has at the current time. I don't know. Like, what does old Gothy want to talk about is the better question. I'd like to let old Gothy say what old Gothy wants to say. She seems very opinionated a lot of the time, and yeah, like, I mean, we got to listen to our elders. So that would be my thing. I would listen to what Gothy had to say. Ooh. And I'm off screen for a sec here, pulling my shoulders back. Ooh. Doing a little stretchy stretch. And again, my shoulders got a bit hunched while I was working, so I'm just pulling my shoulders back and giving myself a really good stretch here. Taking care of your body is important. Take all the time you need. Thank you. Yes, I agree. And I figure it's a good way to remind everybody, stretch. Just, if you are wondering if you've stretched in the last little while, don't even think about it. Just stop and stretch, even just for 2 minutes, and your body will be so grateful for it. Oh, there we go. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun. Like I said, it's my first time mini painting on a stream. I've done YouTube videos, but this is different. So it's a lot of fun to do this. As part of my job. I'm very lucky and privileged to be able to do something fun like this for a couple of hours. Question, what's the mini you're most proud of? Okay, this is interesting. I have a couple on my shelf over here, and the one of them is actually the one I'm most proud of, so I will show it off during this break. So this is Lorsan. Lorsan is from a game called God Tier by Steamforged Games. I was talking about it a bit earlier. Put her in focus. There we go. So this is one of the larger ones I was talking about, one of the larger scale minis I've worked on. So she's like an autumn elf ranger, and she has like some other elves that go with her to play the game. But she was challenging for a number of reasons. One, I had to string a bow, which I've never done before. So that string is just sewing thread. And yeah, just like the leaves on the base are actually just tea leaves that I took out of some loose tea I had upstairs and painted it. So some new challenges with this, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. And I think it is my favorite mini to date. There was a lot of challenges with this one that I managed to do. So yeah, and I mean, not Fool's Gold related, not Hit Point Press related, but that is my favorite mini so far. But out of minis I haven't painted so far, guys, I gotta tell you, this lad is my favorite. So little treat for the stream today. This is the Tarrasque from the Fool's Gold Kickstarter. If you guys haven't seen the Tarrasque from the Fool's Gold Kickstarter, this is it. I should note right out of the gate, though, this is not the full-size Tarrasque from the Fool's Gold Kickstarter. So if you are getting the boy from the Fool's Gold Kickstarter, he's actually going to be double this size. This guy was 3D printed in our warehouse, and he's 50% scale. So, like, yeah. He's a big boy, and the one in the Kickstarter is double this size. So, where's my sips for scale? Like, I mean... Come on, sorry, it's kind of hard to show, but like, come on. So yeah, I love this sculpt. This is not me trying to be like a selling shill or anything. I legit love this sculpt so much. When this was brought to my door to show me, I couldn't stop squealing about it. I just think it's the coolest looking Tarrasque ever. I love not only the pose is really dynamic and like really looking terrifying, I like the little details. Like, it's got broken teeth, it's got broken spikes, like it has seen some stuff. And like, you know, this is not a perfect beast. Like it's a pretty ferocious thing that obviously has had a couple of battles with some very unfortunate parties, which I absolutely love. So if you guys haven't seen the Kickstarter yet, definitely check it out. This big boy, well, even bigger than this boy, is available as its own tier in the Kickstarter. So even if for some ridiculous reason you're not into Fool's Gold and just want a giant Tarrasque, you have that option. But yeah, like having this Tarrasque as part of your Fool's Gold campaign is just going to be the best thing ever. Like I just absolutely love this boy. And, you know, asking earlier, like, would I like to paint a Tarrasque? I've been staring at this guy on my shelf for the last week being like, yeah. So just a little treat for the stream to see this guy. I see GM Workshop asking, how does it compare in size versus a medium-sized mini? I don't know what you mean by medium-sized mini, to be honest. This is 50% scale, and next to Sips is about that size. And keep in mind, the final one is double this size. So yeah, this is only half size, guys. I see a few of you asking in there. This is not the full size Tarrasque from the Kickstarter. The reason being is because this is the first one we printed in the office, and this was the biggest our 3D printer could handle. So that's why we have a 50% scale one in the first place. We actually had to like go in and, you know, break them up into parts in order to print a larger scale one, and I didn't have access to that one. So this is only half the size. The mini, and I hesitate to say mini, that is being offered in the Kickstarter is double this size. It is an actual scale Tarrasque mini. So like, it's no joke. It's about 12 inches tall. So take a foot-long ruler, stand it up straight. That's how tall your Tarrasque will be if you back it in the Kickstarter. It's no joke. It is awesome. So yeah, and again, I just keep staring at this boy. He's very sharp. He's very ferocious. I love him, and I think it's so cool that we're offering him as part of the Fool's Gold Kickstarter. So yeah, go check it out. I feel like I'm really being salesy, but I really truly just love this boy, and I'm really excited to show him to you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed the little wee preview. Sorry I couldn't paint him on the stream. That would have been quite an undertaking, but maybe one day. Just keep asking and we'll see what happens. So that's the boy. If you do have any questions about him again or want to see him, just let me know and I can do my best. One more little stretch here and I'm going to get back to painting. My stretches are very simple. Just I try to stretch out my fingers. I try to stretch out my wrists. I try to, you know, like I said, pull back my shoulders. I'm seeing in chat you guys are pretty excited about it, which is awesome. I see a few questions that I missed. I wanted to address the Tarrasque one while I had it on the screen. You excited for when the, okay, these are kind of the same questions, so I'm going to address both at the same time. Kieran Knight asks, you excited for when the Kickstarter potentially hits the Vicky model stretch goal? And Neji Ramishi, sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly, asks, thoughts on Vicky? I like, everybody has mixed opinions on Vicky from what I understand of things. I like Vicky. Vicky's awesome. I'm excited for any of the mini stretch goals. I mean, I'm excited for all the stretch goals of the Fool's Gold Kickstarter, but yeah, the mini stretch goals, if we can unlock all the minis, I'll be over the moon. I would love to make like a whole set of Fool's Gold minis. So yeah, definitely excited about that. Question from Gothy Potato Druid. Old Gothy probably wants to ask about painting potatoes. or minis made of potatoes. That, yeah, you know, I guess I would talk with Old Gothy about painting potatoes. Maybe that would be an activity we could do together that Old Gothy would enjoy. Yeah. That's some good deep thought right there. That's good. I like that. Question, would you try one of Old Gothy's potions? I mean, I feel like Old Gothy would probably make me try one of her potions, so I don't know if I would have much say in the matter. I wouldn't want to say no to Old Gothy. So I just read Vicky in the chat. Yeah, I think if she was demanding I take it, I might have to say yes and just see what happens. So, you know, Godspeed to me, I suppose. All right, water break, and now we're back. Thanks for bearing with me during a stretch break, and I hope you enjoyed the big boy. All right, so like I said, we're gonna keep working on his face a little bit now, and just kind of not much more to do. I gotta fill in his eyes and his teeth. Now his eyes are gonna be a thing that is probably the thing I'm most nervous about on this stream. Mini painters in the chat will understand why, because painting eyes is the most terrifying thing in the history of mini painting. So I'm going to pop just a little bit of white on my palette here. It's actually ivory. It's a little bit off-white. I don't typically use pure white much in my painting. Just because, I don't know, off-white just seems a little bit more realistic. A lot of things I paint are natural. I see Narzok says, painting eyes is similar to putting contact lenses in. That's pretty accurate, actually. It's they're both kind of like, you got to be slow, you got to be careful, and you're nervous you're going to do it wrong because it's really easy to do wrong. So yeah, it's similar. So I'm just filling in Sips's teeth. Sips often has a very toothy smile, as any Fool's Gold fan knows. I was saying to some of my colleagues before the stream started, so as I mentioned before, I started watching Fool's Gold pretty recently. And actually, my partner just got into Fool's Gold when the Kickstarter launched, because I told him about it, and then he wanted to see what it was all about. And now I'm rewatching the whole series again with him, which is a delight. And yeah, so we just watched, I think it was episode, I'm gonna get the number wrong. I think it was episode 11, the one with the after party. Sips had some pretty evil looking teeth going on in that episode, so. I don't want to say too much for those who haven't seen the series because obviously spoilers. I don't want to spoil anything. Obviously, spoiler, there's a Tarrasque involved at some point, but other than that, definitely check it out. The episodes are short, they're fun, they're funny. And again, I'm not trying to be a marketing person right now. I'm trying to be a person who genuinely loves Fool's Gold, because I do. It's a really cool series, and I'm so excited that we're doing this campaign setting. So now he got his eyeballs filled in there a little bit. I'm just gonna take 2 seconds here. I wonder if I do this a little easier to see. Ah, there we go. I should have done that a while ago. Okay, so you can see the white a lot better now. Now he looks very possessed or whatever because he doesn't have pupils, but the teeth and the eyeballs are all filled in there as well. So I'm gonna give that a second to dry. And while that goes on, I'm just going to do a quick check at everything else, make sure I always like to check multiple times to make sure that everything has the right coverage where it's supposed to have, and you know, nothing's been missed, because I very often miss little bits of minis. Yeah, okay, we're looking good. Actually, there's a little thing I can do while we're waiting for that to dry, which is I'm going to need black anyway for the pupils of the eyes. And this is just straight up Vallejo black, like jet black. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Then I'm going to pop a little bit on the palette here. I always shake my paints. I think I mentioned that before I put them on the palette, just to make sure they're well mixed. And I'm going to add Sips's nail polish. Those of you who don't know, Sips rocks some dark nail polish, black nail polish on his toes and his non-cursed hand. And again, my point is kind of going away here. There we go. Boop. So then this is another, like, I only want a tiny amount of paint on my brush because like these are tiny. I'm not aiming for perfection here, but And I actually have too little paint on it. There, let's try this again. Boop. Just like the tiniest amount. Hopefully I have room for 5 here. Yeah, there we go. Just the tiniest amount. Great detail work, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't skip the nail polish. It's actually, I really love that about Sips, that he's like, that's just like a thing that that's all about Sips, and like something that's valuable to him and part of his style. I love it. And it suits him, it really suits him. Hang on, I have, like, there's a hair actually stuck in my paintbrush. There we go, I got it. And it was like, I don't know if it was a cat hair or what, and it was just sticking out, and I was so nervous that it was going to carry paint to where it wasn't supposed to be carried. So I just solved that problem. These are the trials and tribulations of a mini painter. My cats are both very specifically trained to not go on my mini painting table at any given time, which was a very difficult task to do. But they know. They know what fate awaits them if they try to get on my mini painting table. Okay, that's not too bad. You can see just little dots, like they're not perfect, but they do show the black nail polish. And now I gotta do Sips's non-cursed arm here, or hand. You trained your cats, Allie, is there anything you can't do? They're not perfectly trained, they are cats after all, but cats can be trained. It takes way more work than it does to train a dog, but and way more like consistency, which is very hard, but yeah, they can definitely be trained. My experience training my dog probably helped me train my cats, because it really is just similar, you know. If you catch them in the act, let them know they did something wrong, and try to reinforce them to do the right thing and give them opportunities that lead them away from the bad thing that you don't want them to do. For example, near my hobby table, I do have a cat bed, and every time my cats were getting up on the table, I would just put them on the bed and give them a treat. And it worked. Now they go to the bed. Whoops. So there, I did a little, I don't know if you can see I dribbled just a little bit of black there. So really quickly, I'm wetting my brush and just kind of pulling it back, and it won't perfect it. I might have to go over it with the flesh tone, but that's okay. It helps take a little bit of the black off. And then I'll go back in after and fix it with the flesh tone. Not too bad, just really minor. But yeah, now Sips has his style and black nail polish on the non-cursed man. Untrained mind is Question, if Sips had a word written across the butt of his pants, what would it be? You know what? I know Felix is in chat right now. I wonder if like Felix would have a good answer for that question. I don't really know. I feel like sneeze would like make him write sneeze across his butt. That would be my question. That would be my answer to that question. That it would say sneeze. And like sneeze would do it to Sips, and Sips wouldn't know it was happening. So like, you know, everybody would be laughing at Sips, and Sips would be like, what? And like, he had no idea what's going on. And Sneeze is just like in the corner with like a huge smile on his face. Let me know if that's accurate to the lore. I think that's pretty, I feel like that would be, yeah, okay, thanks Felix. I see Felix said Sneeze writing his name on Sips is the correct answer. glad I was pretty accurate with that. Thanks. That just distracted me because that was so funny. Okay, yeah, that's because I have to do the eyes, and I'm totally just procrastinating doing the eyes. So I have to do, no, Sips's eyes are just black people's. Like, there's nothing to them, and that means that I have to put tiny black dots on the eyes. Now, I know what you're gonna say, like, Allie, you just put tiny black dots, like 15 of them, like, what's the big deal? The big deal is that when you're doing it for eyes, it is so easy to get it wrong. Just like, you know, not even a millimeter off, like the tiniest hair off, and he's gonna look like he's wall-eyed or cross-eyed or something. So it's one of those things where, you know, if you do it wrong, you immediately do have to do it over, because it's just gonna make the entire mini look wrong. Now, the nice thing about this sculpt, and I really appreciate the sculpt for Sips here, is that on the large eye, because you can see he has a squinting eye and a large eye. On the large eye, there's like a little divot. I don't know if you guys can see it on the stream. I think you can. There's a little divot where the pupil is supposed to go. And I so appreciate when I have minis that do that. Just because it kind of helps guide where my point of my brush needs to go. And in this case, Sip's his eyes are kind of focused to the center, so I'm more nervous about making him look cross-eyed than I am making him look wall-eyed. But anyway, I'm procrastinating like crazy. Let's just give this a try. Everybody wish me luck in chat. We're doing this. All right. Yeah. Let's not get too excited. There's still one more to do. Let's see. Yeah, okay. This is actually the harder one because it's like a squinty eye. Okay, need a bit more paint. So far, so good. I'm not playing this up, by the way. This is legitimately how stressed I feel anytime I have to paint eyes. I'm just expressing it more vocally than I usually do. Inside, I am making a lot of nervous noises when I do this on my own. All right. We made it, guys. We made it. Everything's okay. Thank you for being with me during this trying time. All right, so whew, I am legitimately relieved that I cannot tell you how stressful that is anytime I have to do it. So I'm just grabbing another color here that I forgot to pull out before. Whoop, to give Sip some a little more expression to his eyebrows. His eyebrows are a little bit darker than the rest of his yellow fur. So whoop, 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 whoop. There we go. I see in chat, and beholders must be your pain. I've never painted a beholder, and maybe that's why, actually. Maybe I've just been like, you know, back in my brain avoiding it for that reason. That's a very good point. I just see a question I missed from Kieran Knight. Do you wish to be playing in a long-term Ambria Bellowing Wilds campaign? That would be super fun. Yeah. And like I said previously, like it's been an embarrassingly long time since I've gotten really into a game of 5e, but like, yeah, definitely. I think it would be really fun. I would love to create a four-claimer character. I think that'd be like, we have the four-claimer race preview up on the Hit Point Press website, and I've had a gander at it, and I think it'd be really fun to make a four-claimer character. They really appeal to me. And just the whole world so far, what little, like I've seen just little bits of it here and there, the Kickstarter and everything else, and it's just like, it's all so intriguing to me, this world that Dingo and Felix are creating. You know, it's so much more than what we've seen in the series, and it's just so exciting. So yeah, definitely. Like it's just such a cool world, and it's like a silly and crazy world and a wild world. Like I don't know, I love it. The, like, you know, 5e needs more silliness and craziness and unpredictability, so I'm really glad that, like, I feel like Fool's Gold is going to be a really good part of that. I'm just going to grab some water here, guys. Whoop. And actually, it's time for a quick hand stretch too. Whoop. Whoop. Hope you guys are enjoying my little hand stretch dances here. There we go. I just see Karen Knight in the chat saying like a Gorthan like Bruiser character. Yeah, like making a Gorthan style character would be really fun too. And like I know there's some other races coming up too. Like I don't know what they are. I'm very excited to see like what's coming out of this, because yeah, I think it's just gonna be really, really fun. I know in the Kickstarter there's art and discussion about like the Outback cook character, which I am also super into the idea of. There we go. It feels really good to do those little stretches. I can't brag about them enough. Okay, we did the eyes. I'm feeling really good about that. And yeah, it's eyebrow time. And again, these are kind of small too, but they're not quite as nerve-wracking as the eyes, because the eyes just make the mini. Like, if I actually sometimes get a little relieved if a mini either doesn't have eyes for some reason or has like little glowing eyes, like they don't have pupils, because that's always so much easier to do. I need to dial that back a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah, and like, so having big expressive eyes like Sips is actually like, no offense, Felix, like my worst nightmare. But like, I'm really glad it turned out. I think I got the expression that I wanted, which is slightly chaotic, choosing violence Sips. Yeah, I'm gonna grab a little bit. So I have a little bit of the yellow that I used to paint Sips on hand here, just because I knew that there would be a point where I used paint where I'd have to paint like over the yellow again, and this is actually one of those spots. Just a little bit, because I overpainted the eyebrow just a smidge. And like, this is one of those things where like, if I didn't say anything, probably nobody would have saw it, but yeah, there we go. And now I gotta lift it up just a little bit here. Whoops, there we go. When I say I'm rough on my brushes, by the way, like, put it in front of the paper towel here. This was a fine point brush when we started this stream. And it's slowly turning into chaos. So yeah, and they're not high quality brushes, so it is what it is, but there we go. So one more little touch on the eyebrow here, and then I think we'll be done the eyebrows. Yeah. I'm happy with that. It's not perfect, but I think it looks good. So yeah, here we go. And I did say we were going to work on the spells, but I'm actually going to wait just a little bit, because I'd like to show you, we have about a half an hour left on the stream, and I'd like to show you a little bit more of my process that isn't just base painting. So I'm actually going to leave them for now. We might get a chance to get onto them before the end of the stream. We'll see. But for now, let's just call the base paint done. I'm really happy with it. There's a little bit of mess on the base there. I'm not worried about that. I always do a flat color on the base when I start painting my mini, but I will usually make a little bit of a mess on the base as I work, and that's okay. The base always gets done last. Like, after I'm done everything else, I go back to the base and I'll start adding like fine details to the base. So I'm not too worried about that right now. But yeah, like I said, with base color, you just want to lay down your colors as cleanly as possible, just flat colors. He looks kind of like a cheap children's toy right now, I know. This is where like the next steps really start to make it shine, and I'll show you a little bit about that. So the next step is applying like shadows, basically. So you apply shadows using a wash, and I showed you guys the wash earlier. It's this stuff here. I'll put Sips over here actually, so I don't accidentally spill anything on them. And again, I exclusively use Citadel brand wash. I'm not trying to sell them or anything, just they happen to be the wash I like the best. And now what wash is a much more liquidy paint is really the basics of it. It's not watered down though. I don't remember the medium that's in a wash, but it makes it just more viscous and it settles into crevices. And that's what a wash is supposed to do. That's why this is called Citadel Shade. It applies shadow and, more important, like definition to your mini. It really makes the mini's details kind of stand out, because right now you look at Sips and like it's kind of hard to see there's a lot of fine detail in this mini that you don't see. Like, you know, you can kind of start to see the details in his face and stuff, but you can't see his fangs in his teeth, but they're there, you know, they're hard to see. That's where wash can really help bring that out, is it settles into all the crevices of the mini and gives you much more definition. So we're going to start doing that. And I'm actually I picked up the wrong one. I'm going to be starting with this one. Rakeland Flesh Shade. Again, I don't know what Rakeland are. I'm sure Warhammer people do. This is a good shade for like lighter earth tones, things like the yellow of Sips's coat and his skin tone and stuff like that. And then I'm also going to be using this one for some of the other areas. Agrax Earth Shade, which is just a darker brown. So this is a lighter brown, this is a darker brown. These are my two most used washes probably. The third being Nuln Oil, which is like a black. I don't think I'm going to need to use that today. I might use it on his pants. I haven't decided yet, but it's at the ready in case I want to use it. But I'm going to start with this guy. So good shake as always. And I just use this out of the pot. It's way too watery to stick on a palette. So again, this is the only time I actually like the Citadel paint pots too, because it is a watery paint. So I do want it to stay in the pot. So there we go. I was just peeking at chat because I haven't looked at chat in a while. So happy to see Dingo and Felix here. It's I really appreciate you guys joining in. It's like kind of an honor that you're watching me paint your characters. Yeah, it's really cool. Thanks for hanging out. Excited to see episode 23 when it comes out. All right, so back to Sips. Did you miss him? So I'm using the same brush. Sometimes, I meant to mention this, sometimes I will take a larger brush and just slather wash all over a mini. Sometimes there's value to doing that, but in this case, because there's lighter parts and darker parts to Sips, I really want to be careful on what wash goes where. Sorry, I did forget about Gothy. How rude of me. And Gothy's my favorite. I mean, how could I forget Gothy? I'm even more honored that Gothy's here than Dingo and Felix, to be honest. I mean, that's just like, I don't know. Gothy's really making me nervous. Like I gotta perform well in front of Gothy, or else Gothy's gonna yell at me. So yeah, I have a small brush here, and I apply a fair bit of wash, but like not a crazy amount, because you'll see as I start here, like wash is very liquidy and dark. So you want to not have it just pour everywhere. But you'll also see pretty quickly here how it settles, and suddenly we can see Sips's belly button. That wasn't there before. I mean, it was, but we couldn't see it. So little things like that start to pop up, and that's pretty cool. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the process because of that. You get to see like little details that you might have forgotten were there, like Sips's belly button, show up. And the amount of wash to use can be a little bit tricky. I tend to lay it on a bit light and then apply a little extra if I need it. Because you can overdo wash really easily, like I said. And it can like spill out to where you don't want it to, which happens to me a lot, and will probably happen to me on this stream. So just laying it down on his yellow bits. And you'll see, like, again, just some definition showing up. If you do have you'll see here, there's some wash kind of pooling where I put too much. You can actually just dry off your brush on the paper towel and suck it up, see? And then it goes away. So that's a really easy way to pick up if you have too much wash. Yeah, just like that. I'm not a pro at this. I often apply too much or too little, and thankfully with wash, it's pretty forgiving in that regard. Like I said, the biggest part is making sure you don't slather it everywhere and that it doesn't spill where you don't want it. That's really hard to do. At least if you're me, it's really hard to do. So there we go. And a little bit on the hand here. Trying not to get any on the spell, but I probably will, let's be real. Okay, not too bad. Yeah. And I'm not doing the croc arm just yet. I'm going to save the darker wash for that, I think. Yeah. Had a thought there and I lost it. And I'm just applying a flat layer onto the tail because there isn't really any crevices for the wash to fall into, but this will give me a nice base for some highlighting afterwards with the, like, I'll come back in with the yellow paint and just kind of highlight the tops of the tail, give it a little bit of definition. But as you can see with the tail, like, it doesn't really it settles a little bit in that little crevice, I guess, but it doesn't settle much just because there's no definition on the tail. It's just a simple monkey tail. Have a little more water here. Excuse me. So now onto the feet. The feet are the hardest part to show on the stream, so hopefully you can see it okay. And again, I'm kind of over applying it right now, but I'm gonna kind of transfer some of it over to this foot. Wash is kind of funny that way. I can kind of pick it up from here, drop it over here. And again, you can see it really well with the feet, the toes, like, and you can see where the fur now, like, stands out from the skin, right? Like you can see the little fur bits, which you couldn't see at all before. Just because the colors were so close together. And that's where I was saying, like, when colors are really close together, you can be a little forgiving because the wash is what's really going to bring out, like, the definition in those areas. And since they're being covered with the same color of wash, minor color differences aren't really going to matter, if you guys can see there. Like, yeah. So, really cool. I like wash. I'm a fan of wash. And now I'm going to apply some to his face, which is also, like, a really cool part to see because there's a lot of detail in the face. So, again, it looks really messy right at first. But watch. You'll see the teeth show up. You'll see the eyes show up better. Yeah, this part's fun. There, see? Oh, it makes them look more menacing, which is pretty accurate, I'd say. But yeah, that's a really easy, fun, satisfying way to pull out the details in your mini, is just to stick some wash on it. And it's worth noting that you can see it also kind of darkens the yellow, right? And that may not be, you may not want that over the entire mini, but typically you're going to come back around, and I may not have time for it today, we'll see, but you're going to come back around and apply some highlights again. So typically I'll just apply the wash all over and I'll come back and highlight. Some people prefer to be a little more careful in how they apply their wash so that they don't have the dark parts, and they just put the wash in the crevices. I kind of like this method, so just because I like it. So, but yeah, you can see really obvious on his face how the detail really pops with the wash settling into the crevices like that. So wash is sorcery. It is absolute sorcery. Any mini painter will tell you wash is sorcery, and I love it. So now I'm pulling out the dark brown one that I talked about to do. I always start, if I'm doing multiple shades or colors of washes, I always start with the lightest one, and then move to dark, because if the dark gets into the light a little bit, it's not going to matter as much as if the light wash gets into the dark wash, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm really trying to make this brush tip last, even though it's really trying to fail on me. So every once in a while I pause and I straighten out the brush again. And I'm using the dark brown on the crocodile hand just to kind of darken it up a little bit. There's a dark green wash that I sometimes use. It's this guy here, but I find that it makes some greens look way too bright. And I just feel like the dark brown, even though it does muddy up the green just a little bit, kind of matches the rest of the mini better. If I'm doing, like, say, I don't know, this lad, for example, which I unfortunately would not have time to do in today's stream, Jawbone is almost entirely green, so I would probably have used that dark green wash on Jawbone. Anything that is like almost entirely green, I would use a dark green wash, but yeah, so maybe Jawbone will get that treatment later, but for Sips today, it's going to be all shades of brown, so he kind of matches. And a little bit of dark brown on the vest, and I'm letting the dark brown kind of settle into this crevice too, right along his body, just because it kind of gives a nice depth to the vest. It looks like it's like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, it gives it some 3D, like it's sticking out from them, you know? I don't know. There's a word for that. I'm not using it. Cannot word today. And a little bit on the belt. There's like a little fold in his belt that's gonna stick out a little bit better. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, a little bit. And again, this is darkening up the red a little bit. That's okay, because the vest in the art is kind of a dark reddish orange. Not super dark, but a darker reddish orange. And the pants, I don't know. I think, like, it actually looks a little more blue than purple on the stream, I'm realizing. It's a very dark purple. So I'm thinking just a little bit kind of in the, I guess, crotch folds. I don't know. That's a, I feel weird calling it that, but just kind of in the folds and in the crevice here. And same with the back, just for a little bit of depth and a little bit around the cuffs, but not much, because I don't think it really needs it. I think with the pants, the highlights will be better suited to bring out some of the detail. And there isn't a lot of crevices on the pants. They're big, wide harem pants. They look really comfy, to be honest with you. So yeah. Gothy's asking questions again. That Gothy, man. So Gothy's asking, do you usually go through one paintbrush per mini? That's a good question. No, actually, I like this one's, and it depends on the brush. Today, it's getting messed up a little faster than usual. This is the same brush, by the way. I just put water on it, which is why it looks so straight. Usually a brush like this will last me a couple of minis, but it depends on the mini. Sometimes I'm messier with them. Yeah, I don't know why this one's not lasting as long. Some of them are just better than others. It probably comes with the quality. Obviously, they're not the best quality. But yeah, it's behaving itself so far. It's starting to fray out just a little bit, but I can still make it work. So, yeah, that's the wash step. I'm giving this a second just because it takes a minute for wash to dry. You can see where it's just a little shiny is where it's still wet. But we can start working on a little bit of highlighting while we wait for the last little bits to dry. Just give me a sec here, and actually time for another stretch. Got about 20 minutes left. If you guys still have questions for me, please feel free. I'm really enjoying answering your questions. And yeah, we got about 20 minutes left on the stream here today. Having a lot of fun. I wish I had more time to paint all the minis on stream. I knew 2 hours was going to be a bit limited, but I'm happy to be able to show most of my process with you at least. Just realized he should be standing up to let that wash dry while I do a little stretch. And if you want to try mini painting yourself, I was going to mention this earlier, like go for it. It's pretty cheap to get started. You know, you can there's some great miniature painting beginner resources. If you just search like miniature painting for beginners on YouTube or something, you'll find some great resources. I started with a fellow called Brent who runs a channel called Goobertown Hobbies. He has a fantastic video for miniatures, or for beginners, sorry, painting miniatures that just really gets you starting off on the right foot for cheap. So I don't mind giving him a little plug because he really got me started off on the right foot really quickly. Yeah, and just have fun with it. There's so many different minis out there to paint. Obviously, if you're backing Fool's Gold, you'll have a bunch of awesome minis coming your way, and maybe even, you know, a not so mini friend coming your way if you're getting this fella in double size. And yeah, like, don't be afraid of it. It's a lot of fun. The eyes are a little stressful, of course, but you know, you do it and you have fun with it. It's all good. All right, so. Oh, some questions coming in. Kira Knight asks, what's your favorite mini from the ones we've unlocked that isn't a named character? That isn't a named character. I feel like saying the Trask is cheating. So, and so I'm not going to say that, but I mean, let's be real, the Trask. Other than that, I actually kind of like the Jungle Sheep quite a bit. I like the pose they got with the sculpt. It's really cool looking. Yeah, I don't know. I like the Jungle Sheep. Firefox asks, for beginner mini painting, what do you think is a good brand or brands of paint to start out with? Honestly, Vallejo. It's cheap, which I really like. That's another thing I didn't mention about it. I'm in Canada. I ordered these guys from Sunward Hobbies in Toronto online, and they're like $3.50 each. So that's really affordable for mini paints. The Citadel paints run closer to $5 or $6 per pot, for example. So they're really affordable, and Vallejo actually has like starter kits too, of like a good set of base colors for different uses. Like they have like an army themed one, they have like natural color themed one. So, and you save a little bit of money by getting those sets. I'm not affiliated with them or anything. I just do really like their paints. So I would suggest them as like a good place to start. And just start, I would start by like getting a mini or two and figuring out what colors you need for that mini and just buying those paints. That's kind of how I started building my paint collection, is just I buy paints as I need them. I would definitely suggest getting a few washes. Vallejo has washes as well. And yeah, like get a few washes and get some paints, and you're at the races. From there, you can just buy things as you need them. There's no need to invest super heavily into like crazy amounts of equipment to start out with. Like I've been mini painting now for like, well, I started in college and I took a big hiatus, and since that hiatus I've been painting for about 2 years, and I mean I still only have about 40 paints. I do a lot of mixing in my palette, so I mean you can start and keep going with very little. And that's something that a lot of the mini painting beginners videos on YouTube cover as well, is just kind of like how to start cheap, which I really appreciate. For example, you don't need this wet palette. You can just use a Tupperware container with paper towel and a parchment paper on top, and that worked. I used that for my first year before getting this guy. So yeah, you really don't have to invest much at all. So anyway, we only have about 15 minutes left, so let's get started a little bit more on Sips. I'm probably not going to be able to finish him entirely, but I will be able to show you some examples of finished minis at the end of the stream, so you'll get an idea of the process. So now that he's got the wash on and it's all dried, you can see he's got really great shading, except for the spells, of course. I left those white on purpose. But he's a bit darker, right? He's a little dark, and a lot of the colors aren't really accurate to what Sips looks like in the artwork and everything else. So the next step you want to do is kind of bring out the highlights again. And you can do that with a couple of different techniques. I'll actually switch brushes real quick here. I think I'll use you. I told you about this before. This is the one that I snipped off to make a dry brush. So it's the same brush as this guy, but like cut off. And the reason you do that is because you want a nice flat surface to brush over top of edges, because we're just going to be highlighting the edges of Sips now. I'm taking the same yellow that's on my palette here that I used to paint his fur in the first place, and pull this over a little bit. So I got the brush here, and I know it's hard to see because it's out of focus, but there's a very little paint right here. There's a very, very, very thin layer of paint, because I only want just a little bit of paint on my brush. And I'm even going to wipe off a little more onto the paper towel. You have very little paint on your brush for dry brushing because you only want it to hit the highlights. And then I'll start with his hair up here because it'll be easy to see, but you just lightly brush that yellow back on, just like that. And of course I got a little bit on his eyebrow because that's how we be, but I'll fix that later. And just apply bit by bit that light yellow back onto the fur. And a little bit up here because it's the top of his head. And almost immediately you see like the highlights are back. That light yellow is back. And it's looking a little more like the colors that we're supposed to see on Sips. Sometimes I just wipe the paint off on my thumb too. It's a common thing, and like I'm in some mini painting communities on Discord, and often when people post a photo of their mini, they're holding the handle and you just see paint all over their thumb. It's a really common thing that we do. Tarrasque is not cheating. Thank you, Karen Knight. I agree. But I mean, there are a lot of awesome minis in this Kickstarter. I don't want to go on and say that the Tarrasque is like the absolute best. Obviously, it is so super cool, and like there's nothing like this out there, like a 12-inch Tarrasque, and at that price point, like, again, I feel like I sound salesy, but it's like big minis like that they cost way more than that usually, and so it's a really great deal and like amazing. Anyway, the other minis in this Kickstarter are awesome. I love all the sculpts we've had. I think they're really fitting to the characters. Like I didn't get a chance to paint Sneeze on the stream today, but I mean, Sneeze's pose, are you kidding me with this? Like I did paint his pants because, again, yellow. But it's just so Sneeze. Like, I feel like they just really got the character personalities down, and like Gothy looks exactly how I would picture Gothy to look. Like, if I want to have a little Gothy mini in my game, like that's just confident and obviously the leader and ready to like start some stuff, right? So huge fan of all the sculpts and minis in this Kickstarter. They're all so great. I do hope to paint them all. We'll see. I am very excited that I had the opportunity to paint Sips at least today, and to do some starting paint on Gothy and some yellow paint and yellow pants on Sneeze. I'm just putting a little bit of highlight on the tail, like I said before. That's why I laid the wash onto it, was just to get a little bit of highlight on the tail there. You can see that gives it a little bit more definition, which is fun. Do a little bit. This is where it gets a little tricky, because you have to get in here. A little bit of highlight on his shoulders. Anywhere the light would hit, really, like you just kind of try to think of where the light would fall on the mini, and that's where you want to apply the most dry brush. Thanks for coming, Felix. I'm, again, really happy that you took the time to join us. It was really exciting to see you guys here, and thank you for creating such an awesome campaign setting and all the other stuff. And yeah, super excited for the rest of the Kickstarter. I can't believe we have so much time left, and it's just doing so well. Like I'm so excited to see the next stretch goals unlock. And that so many have been unlocked already. Like, it's just so fun. It's such a fun campaign setting. It's a real treat to be able to work with folks like Dingo and Felix on making such awesome stuff. It's a really, really fun job to have, let me tell you. I'm very lucky. Also with dry brushing, I very often have to rinse my brush and and when you rinse oh my goodness, when you rinse your brush for dry brushing, you have to really dry it off afterwards, or else you might have the paint go where you don't want it to go. Oh, Dingo, thank you so much. Again, really, really excited that you guys joined us today. Good luck with making episode 23, and yeah, super excited for the rest of the Kickstarter. All right. So a little bit in the front here. And so you can see with the yellow, that's most of the yellow dry brush now. It's looking brighter, especially in the back here. I put a little bit on the top of the head, and it's looking a little more like it's got definition, which is cool. I'm gonna leave that for now, the yellow, and I'm gonna do a little bit on the red, because the red is it's the darkest compared to what it should be, and I really want to get that back up to where it's supposed to be. So grab. Thanks, Gothy. Sorry I couldn't do a full paint of Gothy today, but one day I'm very excited, and maybe one day I'll get to paint of old Gothy. That would be like a dream come true. Thanks for joining. All right, so just giving it a good shake, but this is a orange-red Vallejo, so sticking that on top of the dark red. And I'm actually not going to use a dry brush for this. The reason being, dry brushes can be a little bit messy. So for going on kind of broader areas like the yellow bits on Sips, it's fine. But here, I don't want any of that orange-red to get on the yellow. And like, if you're kind of using this broad brush to apply the strokes, it's very easy to get some on the yellow. So I do not want that. So I'm going to put that one away, and I'm going to bring back, where'd you go? There you are. My falling apart size 0 brush here. Actually, nope, that's the wrong one. The one I was using is in the paint water, which is another thing I try not to do, is just dip my paintbrush in the paint water and leave it there. But, you know, I'm far from perfect, so. Little swig of water. And yeah, so I'm still going to be sort of dry brushing, but it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be using this fine tip with the orange red. I'm not going to load it up with paint the way I do when I'm applying a base coat, for example. I'm going to take a lot of the paint. I know you can't really see what I'm doing here, but I'm going to take a lot of the paint off and just kind of drag it along the palette so there's not much paint on it. and then apply, just kind of be smart about where I apply it for highlight. So, oh, pardon me, along the edges here. Try to bring it a little closer to the camera here. Along the edges. And you'll see it doesn't show up very well. And again, as I mentioned earlier, orange is another paint that doesn't do very well pigment-wise. So you can't go too light with it on top of a dark red or else you won't see it. So there's a balance between not having too much paint on your brush and having enough orange paint on the brush that it'll actually show on top of the red. It's a bit of a challenge. But yeah, there we go. When it's done right, it can really make it pop. So just like that. And a little bit into the red here. And that immediately gives the vest a lot more like definition, basically. And because it's a thinner, or rather, because it's a lower pigment paint, I can kind of lay it on top of the red in a lot of areas, and it's not going to completely wash out the red. It's going to sort of blend with the red, and so it'll make a nice blend of orange and red, which is kind of what we're aiming for Sips's vest color. And again, it's kind of tricks you learn as you go. You learn what paints behave in different ways. Which ones lay on more heavily, which ones lay on more lightly. And there's actually ways you can make that work for you, excuse me, with different like techniques and stuff. So yeah. And again, I'm no pro at this. I've been doing it consistently for like almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in December. But yeah, I think I'm just going to finish the vest here, and then I'm going to end the stream by showing you some examples of finished ones, just because I wasn't sure if I'd have time to finish Sips today, and it turns out not quite, although we are pretty close. After the pants and the vest, I would have had to do the spells, but that will take just a little too long, unfortunately. But that's okay. I have some examples ready to show you, and just to talk about the last little bit. I'm no pro, says the total pro. I really appreciate that. All right, so a little bit on the back here, and again, I'm just gonna do this kind of flat because there's no real crevices on the back here, just to give it a more of an orange character. Yeah, there we go. And I might put another coat on that, but for now, I'm gonna say that we'll finish with Sips for now. So this is how far I got with Sips. As you remember at the beginning, you know, he started off just being, you had the yellow and the white, the yellow fur and the white spells, and that was it. So we got pretty far today. I'm actually really happy with the progress, especially considering I paused a bunch of times to answer some questions, which I really appreciated. Thanks for asking all the great questions. Yeah, and like, again, not much more to go. Like, I'd do some more highlighting. I would do up the spells, and I would do the base, and, you know, maybe do some sand and some other things. So pretty happy with that. I will finish it. But in the meantime, here, I have a special little treat. I actually painted a full one. So here's a finished Sips. I kind of pulled a Bob Ross on you guys. I painted one ahead of time to kind of get a feel for it. So surprise. So there's a finished Sips. Similar, slightly different colors. I kind of messed up the vest on this one. I used a little too much yellowy orange. I think this other vest is going to turn out much better. But yeah, and you can see I gave him 2 different colors of spells. I did not reference the series. I can't remember. I wanted to make one like wild magic for the cursed hand and then like regular magic. But anyway, it may not be accurate. So if it isn't, please don't at me. And you'll see that I added these little tufts. These are called grass tufts, and they're just these little adhesive tufts you can buy at hobby shops. And you just pop them off this paper and stick them onto a base, and they're a really fun way to like just add a little bit of character. So like I didn't have time to do a fully complex base, but I wanted to add a little bit of fun, make him look like he's in the bellowing wilds, ready to start some trouble. But yeah, so that's how I would finish Sips, is kind of just a little bit. As you can see, compared to the one I worked on today, like we were not that far off. So yeah, that's it. And just to show you guys, like, you know, you saw the archer I posted earlier, and I also have done a lot of other guys. Like I do these guys pretty regularly, and I have a lot of fun with them. So yeah, it's it's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend trying mini painting. If you haven't, just get started with something simple, and it's a lot of fun. Somebody's asking, where can we find some focus pictures of his finished sips? I will see about posting one to the Hit Point Press Twitter account, but if not, follow me on Twitter at Allie Mackey. My handle's in the overlay there. I will be posting a picture of the finished sips to my own Twitter account as well. So, oh yeah, it's in the chat there too. But yeah, and I do post to my Twitter account often with mini paints. I also do like mini painting videos on my YouTube. Some of them are kind of tutorials. I actually have an exciting Halloween one coming up next week. So if you guys want to check that out, you can subscribe to that. But yeah, otherwise, I'm so excited for the Fool's Gold Kickstarter, guys. I'm so excited that it's happening. I'm so excited that I had the privilege of painting some of the minis today with you guys. I'm very excited that we have a finished Sips and he's looking appropriately chaotic. Next, I'm probably gonna have to paint Sneeze to match. I think these two need to be a matching set. What do you guys think? I think so. Yeah, if I had time to paint Sneeze today, that would have been cool, but what are you gonna do? Yeah, if you guys have any further questions, now's the time. We just have a couple more minutes. If you have any questions about mini painting, if you have any questions about Fool's Gold, anything else, yeah, I was just so happy to paint these friends. And like I said, Sips is my favorite Fool's Gold. Here, maybe do another stream. I think so. I think I would love to do another stream. I've had so much fun today. And yeah, like we have more minis in our roster here at Hit Point Paints. Hit Point Press? Hit Point Press. That's the company I work for. So I'm sure there will be another mini painting stream in the future. However, we also have, like we said before, Hit Point Paints coming up, 2 of them next week. A special one with Dingo of Dingo Doodles, which is on the 27th. And then on the 28th, we're hosting one of our in-house artists who actually sculpts minis. Like she sculpts these minis and she's absolutely incredible. So this time next week, she will be on the stream and I highly recommend checking her out. I will be checking it out because I am extremely curious as to her process as well. Question, is there a wolf spider in the Weaver race? That might have been a question for Felix. I can't answer that one, unfortunately, but I mean, I kind of hope so, if I'm being honest. That sounds really cool. But I don't know. I officially do not know. But yeah, so if that's all the questions, I think we might be done for now. Yeah, thank you guys so much. I can't believe how many of you joined today. It's so great to see so many people in the channel, and the chat was great. The questions were great. I really enjoyed answering all your questions. I really enjoyed talking about how I might interact with Old Gothy. That was a highlight. And maybe in the future I'll paint Sneeze on the back of these pants, although the tail might be in the way. We'll see what happens. What do you guys think? Yeah, I think so. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate you joining today. And yeah, don't forget to join us on the next one next week. And I'll be back soon. Can I wave? There we go. Bye.